What is up, people, and welcome to the weeks 7 and 8 of my series Weightlifter, of my series Powerlifter to Weightlifter. In this series, I am showing you on a weekly basis how my progress is going in the transition from a slow powerlifter to a hopefully not so slow weightlifter. In this episode today, we're going to review my training weeks 7 and 8. I'm already now almost halfway in my journey. In week 20, there's going to be the competition. So stay tuned and enjoy.
So kicking off, we obviously first of all want to know if anything changed in the weeks 7 and 8 for you and how your overall training weeks look like. How many days did you train? What were the main focus exercises which you've done?
My training didn't change from the week 6, so during the weeks 7 and 8, my days were still structured the same. So my week always starts with the first day, which is the snatch day. I'm doing regular snatches on that day, and that's the main focus exercise. On my first day, second day, I'm always doing a muscle snatch, followed with an overhead squat variation, and then the third day, the main exercise is a typical overhead squat. So compared to the 4-day split I did prior, we basically cut out the hang snatches, and except for that the training plan stayed the same. Reason why we changed from a 4-day to a 3-day split, and the reason why I'm still continuing to train this way, is because the volume and the overall load simply got too much for me at the end of week 5, which is why we switched. And now the training feels a little bit better already, feeling less exhausted, and the overall volume is a little bit less compared to the weeks prior, since I was feeling my body was always quite tired. I was feeling some aches and pains here and there, and this is why we changed. And now I'm planning to continue with the 3-day split.
So your recovery level feels now better since you've done the 3 days workouts? No, since you've done the 3-day training plan?
It actually felt better in the weeks 6 and 7, but now at the end of week 8, basically after my day 2, so after I did the muscle snatches, I did the cleans, and I did the heavy-ish squats. In the end, my hip actually and my whole body felt a little bit exhausted, and I started to get a little bit of hip pain in my left hip. I do not know what exactly caused this. It didn't happen in the session, but it started as a soreness, which really got intense after a few days. And then on my last training day of the week 8, I was still feeling my hip. I felt like the left hip is not as flexible as the right one, and it didn't give me as much range of motion as it normally does. I went in the training session, thought, okay, after an extensive warm-up and after extensive stretching, the pain and the limited range of motion is going away, which was not the case. So I basically cut the session short, just did my prescribed exercises with the barbell, didn't add any weight, and just did some stretching and recovery on that day. And right after, I got in touch with my coach, and we basically decided together to do a deload and to basically do a light week where I'm not moving any weights in terms of weightlifting exercises at all. So I'm just doing the bar now and doing my recovery exercises and my rehab exercises for the hip primarily. But I think why this happened, probably because the volume and the whole load accumulated over the weeks. We also explained to you during the last video that the whole volume I was doing in my week 5 was actually 1.5 times of the volume I was doing in my last powerlifting block. So that obviously accumulates during the weeks, and then if you do not do any proper deloads, which I didn't do for the last 7 or 8 weeks, it shows at some point, and this happened last week.
I think in the beginning it didn't feel like that it's a lot of weight, because is actually not that much as you would be used to from a powerlifting plan, but when we actually calculated that up, it's actually true that it's way more or pretty similar to what you've done when you were doing powerlifting. But it was kind of sad because that day when Jonas was doing his last real training day, his squat depth was actually super good. So that day we actually realized that he's squatting pretty deep, and it got way better than the weeks before. And then afterwards, maybe it was a little bit too much, and then afterwards your hip made some problems. But yeah, I mean, doing some proper deload weeks and doing lots of stretching and rehab exercises, I think you will get on track pretty fast again.
Yeah, and I think what I also realize now when I'm doing the rehab and the assistance exercises for my hip is that I'm super weak in some parts of my hip, and I actually didn't do any assistance exercises for my like external internal rotation, and then also my adductors and abductors. I didn't do any supplemental exercises next to my weightlifting sessions since they just take up so much time, and I was not having any energy left after my weightlifting sessions to do these assistance exercises. But this now shows me that it's still quite important to not skip them, do them, because at some point when your body is basically giving you more range of motion, probably some smaller muscles which are not used to the range of motion, which are not strong enough to stabilize the joints and stabilize the muscles in this new range of motion, it can be challenging at some times, and the body's gonna show if there's a weak point. And for me, my body probably showed me, okay, in my left hip something is not working properly. But I think it doesn't bother me too much at this point. Now I've had this issue for like a few days now, 5 or 6 days, and from a pain level of like 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 on Monday, now is Friday, I'm like a 1 out of 10 at this point. So the progress and recovery is going quite quick, and I'm quite confident that that I'll be able to train normally from next week onwards again.
But we will take that topic up a little bit more into detail in the next video when we actually review those weeks of Jonas' rehab.
Yeah, and you've seen during the last 7 or 8 weeks that my hip is not the most flexible part of my body. We're just going to show you more in depth in the next video how my rehab is going, which exercise I'm doing, what I'm basically doing to tackle this issue specifically, which is basically like a piriformis issue in terms of symptoms. So the piriformis muscle is really tight, it's always limiting my range of motion and my external rotation. So I think something is causing problems there in this region, and we're going to show you more in depth what I'm doing to fix this.
Then I would just have one last question with regards to you reducing from 4 to 3 days. Did you realize anything in terms of technique? I mean, sometimes, for me at least, it helps that you regularly go for your training sessions, you regularly snatch, have the clean and jerk, so you tend to not forget about the movement. I know that you wouldn't forget about the movement, but sometimes it feels like if you're not training that frequently or doing the movements frequently, you think you forgot about it. Did you feel anything like that?
Yes and no. So snatch actually felt better. Probably the reason being since I was more recovered and my body was feeling a little bit faster and fresher. So the snatch and all the snatch movements like the muscle snatch and the overhead squat felt better. What actually felt a little bit off was the clean, since I was doing cleans with 4 sets of 6 reps or 4 sets of 5 reps twice a week previously. So in week 6 I was still doing this volume, which of course gives you a lot of time to practice the movement. And I felt that switching from or basically cutting the volume in half actually impacts how well or how proficient I am in the technique. So it always took me a little bit of time. It took me a few sets and reps to get more proficient with the movement again. But after some sets and reps, it felt good again. So yeah, I think cutting the volume so drastically on these movements when you're not technically proficient and when you're not technically on a really high level, actually, yeah, of course, reduces your time that you do have to practice and impacts the technique in a negative way. But still, just do more warm-ups, maybe do more sets with the bar. Gives you more time to practice, and yeah, that's how I'm going to tackle this issue during the next weeks.
And one fun fact besides how Jonas is feeling with reducing the days of his training from 4 to 3. Initially, he was always pulling the bar very close, which is obviously super good. And with that, he also removed his hair on his leg with the bar, obviously, so he didn't do that just like that. But now it's starting growing again. So it's starting growing again. So I think his leg hair is at least happy that he's reducing the days and he's not pulling out the leg hairs with his training.
Especially now when I'm moving such high weights, makes a big impact, since when I do have more leg hair, the movement actually gets a lot heavier. I do have more resistance here on the quad section. So I'm actually considering shaving my whole leg, but that's still up to debate.
Okay.
Okay, jokes aside, that was my review of the week 7 and 8. Stay tuned for the next video where I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into my rehab, what I'm doing to get to 100% again quite quickly, hopefully. But until then, make sure to like our video, subscribe to the channel, stay tuned for the next videos which are coming, and of course stay tuned for the competition which is going to happen in October. Until then, take care, bye bye, peace out.